The war had lasted 6 days. 6 days were all it took for the Galactic Empire to break through Earth's defenses. On the first day, satellites burned like falling stars across the sky. On the second, entire naval fleets were erased from orbit. By the third day, cities along the coast were glowing scars visible from space. By the fourth, humanity stopped broadcasting victory speeches. By the fifth, the word retreat replaced the word resistance. And by the sixth day, silence. The last defensive outpost on the edge of the Pacific stood alone, carved into a cliffside overlooking a shattered ocean. Smoke drifted from the ruins of nearby cities. The air smelled of metal, ash, and salt. Inside that outpost, alarms flickered weakly. Lights buzzed. Sparks fell from exposed wiring, and standing in the middle of the empty command hall was Private Elias Ward. He wasn't a decorated war hero. He wasn't genetically enhanced. He wasn't even supposed to be there. His armor was cracked across the chest plate. The insignia of Earth Defense Forces was barely visible under layers of soot. Blood had dried along his sleeve where shrapnel had torn through earlier that morning. He was 23 years old, and completely alone. The invasion fleet appeared above the ocean without warning. Massive alien warships descended through the clouds like silent gods. Their hulls shimmered with dark metallic scales that reflected the burning cities below. Blue energy pulsed along their undersides. Dropships fell from the sky. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. The Empire had already won. The ground trembled as the first alien strike team landed outside the outpost gates. The doors, already damaged from earlier bombardment, exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted steel. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Elias didn't raise his weapon. It was empty. He had counted the last round 30 minutes ago. Instead, he stood still, waiting. The alien soldiers entered in formation, tall, armored figures with elongated helmets and glowing visors. Their armor was smooth and organic, almost grow instead of built. Each one carried a plasma rifle humming with contained power. They scanned the room. Their visors focused on the single human standing before them. There was a pause. Then one of them made a low clicking sound, laughter in their language. More clicks followed. The squad parted as their commander stepped forward. He was larger than the others, his armor darker, marked with golden insignia across the shoulders. His helmet retracted slowly, revealing pale gray skin and sharp, narrow eyes that studied Elias with open amusement. "This is the final defense," the commander said, his voice translated through a hovering drone. His gaze moved up and down Elias' damaged armor. "This is your warrior?" The alien soldiers behind him laughed openly now. The sound echoed strangely in the ruined hall, mechanical, cold, inhuman. Elias felt the vibration of it in his chest. But he didn't move, didn't speak. The commander circled him slowly, inspecting him the way one might inspect a broken machine. "You are injured," the alien observed. "You are outnumbered. You are unarmed." He stopped in front of Elias. "And yet, you did not run." For a brief moment, something flickered behind the commander's eyes. Not fear, curiosity. Elias' jaw tightened. His heart was pounding so loudly he was sure they could hear it. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in nearly 30 hours. The alien commander leaned closer. "Humans are fragile," he continued calmly. "Soft tissue, weak skeletal density, short lifespans. You are biologically unfit for galactic war." That he stepped back and gestured toward the ruined control panels. "You fought for 6 days." Another ripple of alien laughter. "Admirable." The word dripped with mockery. Behind the commander, one of the alien soldiers kicked aside a fallen Earth flag. The fabric slid across the floor, landing near Elias' boots. Elias looked down at it. For just half a second, then back up. Still silent. The commander tilted his head. "No defiance?" he asked. "No final speech?" He studied the human's eyes carefully, and what he saw there wasn't surrender. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even desperation. It was something else. Something the Empire had never encountered before. Patience. The alien commander mistook it for shock. He raised his hand. "Seize him." 2 soldiers stepped forward and grabbed Elias by the arms. His knees nearly buckled from fatigue, but he forced himself upright. The commander turned away dismissively. "Prepare him for interrogation." As they dragged Elias toward the exit, the alien soldiers continued laughing. They believed the war was over. They believed this broken human was the last symbol of a defeated species. They believed Earth had fallen, and that belief was exactly what Elias had been waiting for. The command chamber of the alien flagship was built to intimidate. Dark metallic walls curved upward into a dome of shifting light panels. Strange symbols pulsed across transparent displays suspended in midair. At the center of the room stood a circular platform surrounded by towering holographic projections of star systems, each one marked with the sigil of the Galactic Empire. Worlds conquered, species cataloged, civilizations erased. Elias was forced to his knees on that platform. The air felt heavier here, artificially pressurized to suit alien biology. Each breath burned slightly in his lungs, but he didn't show it. Around him stood armored guards in a perfect semicircle, weapons angled downward but ready. Above them, on an elevated command dais, stood the alien commander. His name translated roughly to Veilcor, Supreme Field Executor of the 3rd Expansion Fleet. His helmet was fully retracted now. Pale gray skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. His eyes were narrow and calculating, glowing faintly under the chamber lights. He studied Elias as one might study a specimen. So, Veilcor began, his voice amplified and translated through the hovering drone beside him. This is humanity's resistance. He descended the steps slowly, each footstep echoing. For 6 cycles, you resisted our advance. Primitive weapons, outdated propulsion, inefficient military structure. He stopped directly in front of Elias. And yet you fought. Elias kept his gaze forward, silence. Veilcor circled him again, hands clasped behind his back. You confuse bravery with capability, the commander continued. A common flaw among developing species. A hologram flickered to life beside them. It displayed Earth, blue ocean scarred by orbital bombardment. Several major cities were highlighted in red, marked as neutralized. Your planet's defenses collapsed in 43 of your hours, Veilcor said calmly. Your orbital fleet was eliminated in 19 minutes. Another hologram appeared, human warships breaking apart under alien plasma fire. Your soldiers died screaming in vacuum. The alien guards emitted low clicking sounds of amusement. Veilcor leaned down slightly, bringing his face closer to Elias. You are not warriors, he said quietly. You are survivors pretending to be predators. Elias' jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. The commander straightened. We studied your species for decades before this invasion. Your entertainment glorifies war. Your history is soaked in conflict. You call yourselves adaptable. He gestured toward another hologram, a rotating DNA strand. But biologically, you are inferior. He began listing facts as if presenting data to a council. Lower muscle density than 7 of the 8 dominant species. Fragile bone structure. Limited lifespan. No natural armor. No psychic field sensitivity. He paused. And emotionally unstable. The guards laughed again. Veilcor stepped closer, his shadow falling over Elias. You are driven by fear and anger. Predictable motivators. He crouched slightly, locking eyes with him. You believe defiance makes you strong. There was a long silence. Elias finally spoke. His voice was rough, dry from smoke and exhaustion. You're wrong. The chamber grew quiet. One of the guards shifted its weapon. Veilcor's expression barely changed, but interest flickered in his eyes. Explain, he said. Elias swallowed slowly. You didn't win in 6 days. The guard stirred again. Veilcor stood upright. Our fleet occupies your orbit. Your governments have collapsed. Your communications are silenced. He tilted his head. Define victory, human. Elias lifted his gaze fully now. You think we fought to stop you. A slight pause. We didn't. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. Then what was your objective? Elias didn't answer. Veilcor signaled, and one of the holographic displays shifted to show the Pacific outpost, now smoldering and abandoned. Your base was tactically insignificant, Veilcor said. Minimal personnel. No heavy weapons. No strategic value. He looked back at Elias. Why were you there alone? Another pause. Elias' breathing remained steady. Veilcor stepped closer again, studying micro-expressions in the human's face. Alien species were experts at reading biological signals. Elevated heart rate, pupil dilation, stress markers. But Elias' readings were strange. Elevated, yes, but not panicked, not broken. Veilcore felt something unfamiliar settle in his thoughts. A minor inconsistency. You were transmitting, the commander said slowly. One of the displays flickered again, showing a faint signal log. A low-frequency burst signal from beneath the outpost. The guards shifted uneasily. Veilcore's tone hardened slightly. To whom were you speaking, human? Elias met his gaze directly. Not speaking. A quiet beat. Calling. For the first time since entering the chamber. The alien guard stopped laughing. Veilcore straightened fully. The confidence in the room didn't disappear. But it shifted. Just slightly. He turned toward his tactical officers. Traced the signal source. Displays began flashing rapidly. Alien operators worked with fluid, precise movements. Signal origin confirmed. One of them reported. Source. A pause. Unknown. The word echoed strangely in the chamber. Unknown. Veilcore slowly turned back toward Elias. The human was still on his knees. Still injured. Still unarmed. But his eyes. They weren't the eyes of a defeated soldier. They were the eyes of someone waiting for something to arrive. Veilcore felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. But doubt. And doubt was something the Galactic Empire had not felt in centuries. The command chamber lights flickered once. Just once. But in a vessel powered by a quantum core and layered redundancies, even a single flicker was unacceptable. Veilcore noticed. He did not react outwardly. Commanders of the Empire were trained never to display uncertainty, but his eyes shifted briefly toward the ceiling panels. Report, he ordered calmly. Across the chamber, alien technicians worked at floating holographic consoles. Symbols streamed rapidly as they analyzed the signal source beneath the Pacific outpost. The transmission continues, one officer said. Low frequency, buried under planetary interference. Destination? Veilcore asked. A pause. Untraceable. That word again. Untraceable. The Empire mapped entire galaxies. They predicted supernovae centuries in advance. They cataloged species before first contact. Nothing was untraceable. Veilcore slowly turned back toward Elias. The human's shoulders were still slumped from exhaustion. Blood had dried along his collar. His breathing remained steady despite the thin, alien pressurized air. You activated this transmission, Veilcore said evenly. Elias didn't deny it. You believe assistance is coming, the commander continued. Silence. Veilcore stepped closer. No human fleet remains within effective range. We destroyed your primary carriers. Your long-range vessels were intercepted attempting retreat. He gestured, and a hologram displayed the debris field of shattered human ships drifting in orbit. This is what answered your call. The alien guards emitted soft clicks of amusement again, but Elias didn't look at the hologram. He looked past IT to AS if it didn't matter. Veilcore studied him carefully. You are either delusional, the commander said, or irrationally hopeful. Elias finally spoke. Neither. One word. Calm. That calmness was starting to irritate Veilcore. The commander signaled to his tactical division again. Full spectrum scan, he ordered. Search for incoming vessels beyond standard detection radius. The technicians complied instantly. Massive holographic projections expanded, displaying sectors of nearby space. Sensor grids swept outward like ripples in water. Seconds passed. Then one of the operators stiffened. Anomaly detected. The chamber grew quieter. Define anomaly, Veilcore said. Energy distortions, far beyond our fleet perimeter. A different officer added. Not consistent with hyperspace signatures. Veilcore's eyes narrowed. Magnify. The hologram zoomed outward into deep space. At first, there was nothing but stars. Then, faintly, small distortions appeared. Like cracks in reality. Subtle at first, then multiplying. Veilcore felt a subtle shift in the room's energy. The guards were no longer amused. Is this a natural phenomenon? He asked. Negative, came the reply. Is it human technology? Pause. Unknown configuration. Unknown. Again. Veilcore stepped toward the hologram, studying the distortions carefully. They were forming patterns, synchronized pulses spreading across multiple coordinates. How long until arrival? He demanded. The technician hesitated. They are not traveling through hyperspace. Then how? A longer pause. They are already here. At that exact moment, every holographic display in the chamber glitched. Symbols scrambled. The planetary projection of Earth flickered violently before dissolving into static. A deep vibration rolled through the flagship's hull, not from weapons fire, from space itself. One of the guards stumbled slightly as the floor trembled. Shields, Velcor barked. Operational. Weapons, operational. Then what is happening? No one answered immediately. Outside the massive viewing port at the far end of the chamber, space shimmered. It looked as if the fabric of reality was peeling back. And then, they appeared. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Human ships. Sleek, dark, nearly invisible against the void. Their hulls absorbed light instead of reflecting it. No insignia, no standard Earth fleet markings. They had been redesigned, rebuilt, hidden. A collective silence fell across the chamber. Velcor stared at the armada materializing around his fleet. "This is impossible," one officer whispered. The human ships did not fire immediately. They simply surrounded the Empire's vessels in perfect formation. Predators encircling prey. Velcor slowly turned his head toward Elias. The human was still kneeling, still injured. But now, he was smiling. Not arrogantly, not triumphantly, just knowingly. "You see," Elias said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, yet perfectly clear in the silence. "You studied our biology." Velcor felt something cold form beneath his chest plating. "You studied our weapons." More human ships emerged, locking targeting systems silently onto alien cruisers. "But you never studied our patience." A sharp alarm suddenly pierced the chamber. Enemy targeting systems active. Multiple lock-ons. Shield interference detected. Velcor's composure cracked, just slightly. "How did they bypass our detection grid?" he demanded. One technician responded, voice trembling. "They weren't bypassing it." Pause. They were waiting outside it. The human fleet commander's signal suddenly forced its way onto the chamber's main display. A calm human voice echoed across the alien flagship. "Galactic Empire Fleet, you are now surrounded." The message paused deliberately. "You mistook retreat for defeat." Behind Velcor, several alien officers stepped backward instinctively. Elias slowly rose to his feet despite the guards' grips. And for the first time since the invasion began, the Galactic Empire felt something it had not experienced in centuries. Vulnerability. The silence inside the alien flagship lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Multiple target locks confirmed. Enemy vessels exceeding shield range. Energy signatures rising. Velcor snapped back into command mode instantly. "All ships, defensive formation Sigma Prime," he roared. "Activate full-spectrum shields. Prepare counterfire." Outside the massive viewport, the Empire's warships began to reposition. Massive cruisers rotated, their underbellies glowing as shield matrices expanded in layers of blue light. But the human fleet did not move. They held position. Thousands of ships. Silent. Still. Like a wall. The human transmission resumed. "You invaded our world believing speed equals superiority." The voice was calm. Controlled. Not angry. "You are about to learn the cost of miscalculation." Velcor bared his teeth. "Fire," he commanded. Alien warships unleashed the first barrage. Blinding lances of plasma ripped across the void, tearing toward the human formation. The blasts were powerful enough to vaporize cities. Inside the flagship, alien officers watched with confidence returning to their posture. Direct hits. Explosions flared across several human ships. But when the light faded, the ships were still there, intact. A murmur of disbelief spread through the chamber. "Damage report," Velcor demanded. "Minimal structural impact detected," a technician answered, voice tight. "Their hulls are absorbing the energy." Velcor's eyes widened slightly. Absorbing? Before the technician could elaborate, the human fleet moved. Not forward, not backward, sideways. Instantaneous micro-jumps. Entire squadrons shifted position without hyperspace distortion, appearing in blind spots between alien vessels. "What technology is this?" one officer whispered. Elias, standing between his guards, spoke quietly. "Adaptation." Human ships began firing, but not with overwhelming beams or destructive blasts. Instead, precise, narrow pulses struck specific sections of alien cruisers. Engines, weapon arrays, shield generators. Inside the chamber, alarms screamed. Propulsion failure on cruiser Delta 9. Weapons grid offline on Carrier 6. Shield harmonics destabilizing. Veilcore watched in stunned fury as his fleet's formation began to fracture. "They are not targeting hull integrity," an officer reported. "They're disabling critical systems." The Empire's ships weren't exploding. They were going dark, one by one, like stars blinking out. Veilcore turned sharply toward Elias. "You planned this." Elias didn't deny it. "You studied us," he replied evenly. "We studied you." Another alien cruiser outside suddenly lost power completely, drifting helplessly. Human boarding craft launched immediately from surrounding ships. Sleek, fast, coordinated. "This is not standard warfare," Veilcore growled. "No," Elias said. "It's human warfare." A violent tremor shook the flagship as a precision strike hit one of its external shield nodes. The chamber lights flickered again, longer this time. "Shield capacity at 78%, a technician called out. "Return concentrated fire," Veilcore ordered. Alien ships attempted to regroup, but every maneuver was anticipated. Each time a cruiser adjusted course, human vessels were already there, predicting, countering, outmaneuvering. "How are they calculating our moves?" an officer demanded. "They're not calculating," Elias said softly. "They're remembering." Veilcore turned slowly. Elias continued. "Every battle we lost this week, we recorded. Every tactic you used. Every formation shift." Another explosion rocked the ship as a second shield node failed. "We weren't fighting to win," Elias finished. "We were learning." On the main display, dozens of alien ships were now disabled, surrounded by human vessels. Boarding teams were breaching hulls with surgical precision, not slaughtering. Capturing Veilcore's breathing grew heavier. "Why not destroy us?" he demanded suddenly, staring at Elias. A direct hit shook the flagship again. Sparks rained from the ceiling. "Because," Elias said, stepping forward despite the guards tightening their grip, "dead enemies don't spread messages." As if on cue, the human transmission cut back in. To the Galactic Council, the voice declared, now broadcast across all frequencies. "This engagement has been recorded in full." Visual feeds from the battlefield began projecting across alien channels, showing human ships systematically disabling the Empire's supposedly invincible fleet. "You misjudged our species." Another alien cruiser went dark. "You mistook restraint for weakness." Veilcore clenched his fists. "Prepare the planetary annihilation protocol," he ordered through gritted teeth. A technician froze. "Commander, our command uplink to the planetary weapon array has been severed." "Silence." Veilcore's head snapped toward the viewport. Human ships now surrounded his flagship. Hundreds of them. Weapons locked. The targeting alarm inside the chamber shifted tone, steady and inescapable. The human voice returned one final time. "Supreme Commander Veilcore." His name, spoken clearly. "You are now the one surrounded." The chamber doors behind Elias suddenly hissed open. Several alien guards turned in alarm, only to see human soldiers stepping through. Armor upgraded. Sleek. Calm. Boarding complete. Veilcore stared at Elias. "You were never alone," he said slowly. Elias met his gaze. "No." Outside, the last of the Empire's cruisers powered down. The Galactic Empire's most dominant fleet had just been neutralized in under 11 minutes. And not a single human ship had been destroyed. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had not been overpowered. It had been outthought. The alarms had stopped. That was the worst part. No more warning sirens. No more tactical chatter. No more confident status reports. Only silence. A heavy, suffocating silence inside the alien flagship. Veilcore stood motionless at the center of the command chamber as the reality of the situation unfolded across the main display. Every ship in his fleet was dark. Not destroyed. Not drifting in debris. Disabled. Captured. Surrounded. Precision. Efficiency. Mercy. The human soldiers who had entered the chamber moved with controlled discipline. Their armor was unlike anything the Empire had recorded before. Matte black plating, adaptive visors, energy fields humming faintly around their forearms. They did not rush. They did not shout. They secured positions with quiet confidence. Two of them disarmed the alien guards in seconds, not killing them, simply neutralizing their weapons and forcing them back. Veilcore noticed something deeply unsettling. The humans were calm. Victorious species were supposed to celebrate, dominate, roar. These ones did none of that. Elias stepped forward, now free of restraint. He swayed slightly from exhaustion but remained standing. A human commander entered behind him, taller, older, insignia marking high rank across his chest plate. His visor retracted, revealing steady eyes that locked directly onto Veilcore. "You are Supreme Field Executor Veilcore," the human commander said evenly. It wasn't a question. Veilcore lifted his chin. "I am." The human commander nodded once. "You will order your remaining planetary forces to stand down." A faint tremor ran through the chamber floor as another alien cruiser outside fully powered down. Veilcore's jaw tightened. "You think this battle defines the war?" he asked coldly. "The Empire spans hundreds of systems. You have won nothing." The human commander stepped closer. "We didn't come to win," he said quietly. Veilcore felt a flicker of irritation. "Then why?" Elias answered. "To send you back." The words echoed softly. Veilcore stared at him. "Back," he repeated. "To your council," Elias continued. "Back to your admirals. Back to your people." The human commander gestured toward the viewport. "Every second of this engagement has been transmitted across open channels." A holographic feed activated, showing alien communication networks lighting up with the recorded battle footage. Alien cruisers failing. Human ships appearing from nowhere. Veilcore's fleet collapsing without a single decisive explosion. "We want them to see," the human commander said. Veilcore felt something unfamiliar forming in his chest. Not anger, not rage, something colder. Understanding. "You are not attempting extermination," he said slowly. "No," Elias replied. "Extermination creates martyrs," the commander added. "Fear creates hesitation." Outside, a massive alien dreadnought, one of the Empire's largest vessels, was now surrounded by dozens of human ships. Its engines were offline, weapons silenced, completely helpless. Veilcore watched it drift, and for the first time since the invasion began, he saw his fleet the way weaker species must have seen it. Overwhelming, inevitable, until it wasn't. "You allowed us to invade," Veilcore said quietly. Elias didn't smile this time. "Yes." The chamber felt colder. "We needed to know how you fight," Elias continued. "How you think, how you organize command." Veilcore replayed the last 6 days in his mind. Human resistance pockets, strange retreats, delayed counterattacks, outposts defended longer than strategically necessary. They hadn't been trying to survive. They had been gathering data. "We were the test," Veilcore whispered. "Yes," the human commander confirmed. Veilcore slowly turned toward the viewport again. The Empire had studied humanity for decades before invading, analyzed their biology, their culture, their primitive spaceflight capabilities. But they had miscalculated one critical variable. They assumed humans would panic. They assumed they would respond emotionally. They assumed they would fight for pride. Instead, they had fought for information. Veilcore's breathing grew heavier. "You could destroy this fleet," he said. "We could," Elias answered. "Why spare us?" The human commander stepped forward until he stood only a few feet away. "Because when you return to your council," he said quietly, "you will describe what happened here." Veilcore met his gaze. "You will tell them that humanity adapts faster than it fears." Another pause. "You will tell them that invasion guarantees escalation." Elias stepped beside his commander. "And you will tell them," he finished softly, "that the next time you come." He let the sentence hang. Veilcore swallowed. He had led dozens of campaigns. He had broken civilizations in hours. He had watched species surrender at the sight of his fleet. But now, he understood something terrifying. Humanity had held back. This wasn't their full strength. This was a demonstration. Outside, human ships began repositioning. Not for attack, but escort. The human commander issued a final order. "Restore minimal propulsion to the alien flagship. They will depart under supervision." Veilcore's eyes widened slightly. "You are releasing us." "Yes." The human commander's voice remained calm. "Go home." The words carried more weight than any threat. Veilcore felt it then. Not anger, not humiliation. Fear. Not fear of destruction. Fear of a species that did not rush to kill. Fear of an enemy that learned from defeat. Fear of patience. As the flagship's systems partially rebooted under human control, Veilcore looked one last time at Elias. "You are not the weakest species," he said quietly. Elias met his gaze. "No," he replied. "We're the ones who survive." Outside, the disabled fleet drifted under human oversight. The Empire had come expecting conquest. Instead, they were leaving with a warning. And across the galaxy, as battle footage spread from system to system, the laughter stopped. The battlefield was silent. Where once the Galactic Empire's third expansion fleet had dominated orbit, now its vessels drifted under controlled escort. Human ships maintained precise formation around them, not aggressive, not celebratory. Watchful, measured. Inside the partially restored alien flagship, emergency lighting cast long shadows across the command chamber. Systems were running at minimal capacity, enough for propulsion, communications, and life support. Enough to leave. Velcor stood at the viewport, staring at the human armada surrounding him. They weren't gloating. They weren't firing victory salvos. They weren't broadcasting triumphant war chants. They were simply there, steady, certain. Behind him, Elias leaned lightly against a damaged console. His injuries had finally caught up to him, but he refused medical attention until the fleet transition was complete. The human commander approached the central communication array. Open wideband transmission, he ordered. Across hundreds of systems, encrypted human relays activated. Alien communication networks, once secure and isolated, were overridden by the same precise signal that had disabled Velcor's fleet. The message was not loud. It did not carry distortion or aggression. It was clear. To the Galactic Council and all member species, the human commander began. Velcor felt every word like a tightening coil around his authority. You initiated hostile engagement against the planet Earth under the assumption of technological superiority. Visual footage from the battle played alongside the transmission. Human ships absorbing plasma fire. Alien cruisers losing power. Boarding teams securing command decks without unnecessary bloodshed. You misjudged our response time. The image shifted to show the Pacific outpost, destroyed, burning. You misjudged our capacity for adaptation. The footage rewound to show alien warships entering Earth's atmosphere days earlier. Deep space returned to stillness. Velcor stood motionless as propulsion systems hummed back to minimal life under human authorization. He turned slowly toward Elias. You orchestrated this, he said quietly. Elias shook his head faintly. No. Velcor frowned. Then who? Elias' eyes moved toward the viewport, toward Earth in the distance. All of us. The corridor through the human fleet widened fully now. An opening. An exit. Velcor understood the message clearly. This was not mercy. This was positioning. The Empire had been allowed to leave so the story could spread, so hesitation could grow, so doubt could take root in the council chambers. The flagship began moving slowly forward. Human ships maintained formation on either side, silent escorts. As Velcor's vessel crossed the boundary of the formation, he looked back one last time. The human armada remained perfectly aligned, unshaken, uncelebrating, ready. For the first time in his military career, Velcor did not feel rage at defeat. He felt caution, and caution, in galactic politics, was more powerful than fear. Behind him, Earth rotated quietly in the darkness of space. Scarred, but standing. Inside the human fleet's command ship, Elias finally allowed himself to sit. A medic approached. You did good, the human commander said quietly. Elias exhaled slowly. They'll come back. Yes, the commander agreed. Outside, the last alien ship vanished into hyperspace. But next time, he looked at the massive fleet surrounding Earth. They won't be laughing. And across the galaxy, in council halls and war chambers alike, one truth began to spread faster than any invasion fleet ever could. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. They were the most patient, and that made them dangerous. They studied our strength. They measured our bones. They counted our ships, but they never measured our patience. The galaxy learned something that day. Humans don't rush to win. We wait. We adapt. And when the time is right, we strike. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more HFY Sci-Fi stories where humanity proves why underestimating us is always a mistake. They studied our strength. They measured our bones. They counted our ships, but they never measured our patience. The galaxy learned something that day. Humans don't rush to win. We wait. We adapt. And when the time is right, we strike. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more HFY Sci-Fi stories where humanity proves why underestimating us is always a mistake.